The beginning wasn't slow. It wasn't creeping. It was like a steel trap snapping shut, sudden, silent, and irreversible. I didn't feel suspicion before it happened. I didn't have a growing list of red flags to wave around in hindsight. It all hit me like a slap from a cold, wet hand I didn't see coming. One minute I was biting into a roast beef sandwich in my office, and the next thing I remember clearly, it was dark outside and someone was shaking me awake like I'd passed out in a war zone. I blinked against the overhead lights, confused, dry-mouthed, dizzy. I remember the faint sound of my phone vibrating over and over on my desk like it had been screaming into a void all day. My shirt was damp with sweat. My neck ached like I'd been in a car crash. I stood up too fast and nearly fell over. I thought I was dying. What I didn't know then was that I'd been poisoned. I use that word deliberately. She'll say drugged later. She'll say dosed. She'll use words like just a little and I didn't think it would hit you that hard. But none of that changes what happened. My wife tampered with my food. She did it on purpose so that I wouldn't be awake to witness what she had planned. And the part that messes with me the most? She kissed me on the cheek that morning and handed me the lunch bag like she was giving me a gift. I drove home in a fog, not trusting my hands on the wheel. My mind was a swamp of questions, but the deeper I went into the night, the more my stomach churned with something uglier than nausea. Something was wrong. Not just with me, with everything. I pulled into the driveway and noticed it instantly. The lights were on in every room. She never left the lights on. There were 2 wine glasses on the porch table. One of them still had lipstick on the rim, and neither belonged to her brand. There was music playing, faint, from the inside, not her usual cold jazz playlists, but something low and rhythmic with a beat that didn't match her taste at all. The door wasn't locked. I stepped in. The air was warm and sweet with the smell of something expensive, perfume mixed with champagne and something metallic underneath it, like too much jewelry in a hot room. There was laughter coming from the kitchen. Not hers. A man's. And another woman's. She was entertaining. While I was unconscious in my office chair, drooling into my lap, she was throwing a party. I didn't yell. I didn't slam the door. I just stood in the hallway and listened. Every word twisted deeper than the last. He was out like a baby by noon, she said, chuckling. Didn't even twitch. I told you, I've done this before. He trusts everything I hand him. Did he ever suspect? Please. He's too nice. Too stupid. He thinks I still come home late because of meetings. Laughter again. Clinking glasses. A sharp inhale like someone had just popped open a new bottle. I walked out before I saw their faces. I didn't want to see who she was talking to. Not yet. I needed space between that moment and the next. I needed oxygen or maybe fire. I got in my car and drove 4 blocks before I pulled over and screamed into my steering wheel so loud I scared a dog walker. Then I sat there and stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror, and all I could think was, this is what it feels like to vanish. She didn't just cheat. She orchestrated it. She scheduled it, prepared for it, cooked around it. She made it an event. A celebration. The worst part? She made me a part of it. I was the clown in the trick, asleep behind the curtain while the show went on without me. But that wasn't the end. That wasn't even the twist. The twist came 3 hours later after I returned. Not to confront her, not yet. I had something better in mind. I went back because I remembered something. The house has cameras. Not ours. The neighbors. And I had access. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even lie down. I parked 3 houses down from ours, turned off the lights, and waited in the driver's seat like a ghost haunting his own life. The windows were slightly cracked. I could still hear music if the wind shifted. Laughter faded in and out like radio static. At one point, someone stumbled out the front door, a tall guy in a dark coat, swaggering like he owned the planet. He lit a cigar right there on my front step. He didn't see me. No one saw me. Around 3:11 a.m., the lights finally died. The music stopped. 2 men left. 1 woman followed. She wore a blazer and no pants. My wife never came out. She was inside, probably passed out on our bed. Alone, I hoped. But at that point, hoping felt like volunteering for another punch in the ribs. The next morning, I texted my neighbor, Paul. He's a retired cop who likes gadgets more than people. We've shared beers and yard tools, but never secrets. I told him my car got keyed last night and asked if his cameras picked anything up. He said yeah, the front yard cam caught everything, motion activated, high resolution. And since he was about to head out of town for a week, he told me I could grab the files directly from the storage hub he kept in his garage. When I opened that footage, my hands were shaking so hard I had to brace them on my knees. I skipped through 4 hours of nothing until I hit 12:48 p.m. The moment I'd passed out at work. She came outside in a red robe, the one I got her for our anniversary. She paced on the porch, phone in one hand, wine glass in the other. 15 minutes later, a luxury black SUV pulled up. Then another. Then a third. One by one, 3 people walked out like they were checking into a private club. 2 men. 1 woman. I recognized the last one. The CEO of her firm. I'd met him twice. He once called me Martin by mistake. At 1:13 p.m. she welcomed them inside. They brought bottles, bags, and something else, a sense of ease, like they'd done this before. At 1:29 p.m. she closed the front door and locked it, something she never did unless she was hiding something. The rest of the video was uneventful, but it told me everything I needed. She'd planned this to the minute. I went home that evening like a surgeon entering an operating room. Calm. Measured. But inside I was ready to tear the walls off the studs. She was on the couch when I walked in, scrolling her phone like the night before hadn't happened. She looked up at me like I was the one late for dinner. "You look terrible," she said, half smirking. "Did you even come home last night?" "No," I said. "I didn't." Her fingers froze mid-scroll. She blinked twice, calculating. "Well, maybe next time let someone know." "I thought something happened." "You thought something happened," I repeated. I stepped closer. "Like what?" "That I might wake up too early from the surprise nap you gave me." She narrowed her eyes. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about you drugging my lunch," I said, loud now. "I'm talking about the 3 guests you entertained while I was unconscious in a locked office. I'm talking about how all of it is on video." The silence that followed was surgical. She didn't gasp. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. She just stared at me for a long, thin moment and then leaned back into the couch like she was tired of pretending. "So what?" she said. That was it. No lies. No gaslighting. Just 3 words. "So what?" I've never felt something in my chest freeze and boil at the same time before that moment. Every word I had practiced in the car, every speech I wanted to give about betrayal and decency and consequences, it vanished like fog. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even surprised. She was just done hiding. "What kind of person are you?" I asked. It wasn't rhetorical. I genuinely didn't know who I was talking to anymore. She stood up slowly and walked to the fridge. The kind who got tired of pretending her life was enough. "You played house. I played reality. You drugged me," I said again because I had to hear it out loud. She shrugged. "You would have gotten in the way." The words weren't loud, but they hit harder than a shout. I stared at her, and for a second I almost laughed. Because I realized this wasn't a moment I could repair or reverse. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a reveal. This was who she really was. She just stopped bothering to pretend. But if she thought that was the end of it, she didn't know me at all. Next, the meeting I scheduled with her CEO and why it ended with 3 resignations. I didn't call her a monster. I didn't scream. I didn't break anything, though my hands begged to crush something, anything, just to make the noise match the chaos in my chest. I walked out of the kitchen in silence, but not in retreat. I went straight to the den, shut the door, and started planning. By dawn, I had already sent 5 emails, placed 2 calls, and scheduled a private meeting at the one place Amanda never thought I'd go, the firm where she worked. I knew a guy. Everyone knows someone, and this time I cashed in every shred of goodwill I had. His name was Corey. He worked in IT security and owed me a favor from a mess he got himself into last year involving 2 fake invoices and a very real girlfriend. I didn't want access to anything illegal. Just transparency. And Corey, well, Corey liked secrets more than rules. He confirmed 3 things. 1. Amanda hadn't logged any PTO for yesterday. 2. The CEO had clocked into the building in the morning and never returned. 3. Her internal communications were suspiciously clean. Too clean. "You're not hearing this from me," Corey said, "but someone wiped her Slack history 2 days ago. All of it. Wiped." Amanda wasn't just reckless. She was careful. She knew how to cover tracks, knew how long she had before loose ends strangled her. But she didn't expect me to act this fast. By 10 a.m. I walked into her building. It's one of those downtown glass monoliths that tries too hard to look impressive. I asked for a meeting with the CEO. I used my real name. The receptionist hesitated, then made a call. He came down in 10 minutes. I could see the recognition in his face. Not just from having met me before, but something sharper, the shock of being seen outside the context of his own control. He wasn't wearing the same confidence he had when he swaggered out of my house at 3 a.m. Now, in daylight under cold corporate fluorescence, he looked smaller. "Walk with me," he said. It wasn't a request. We went to a conference room. One wall was all windows. The other 3 were glass too, like a fishbowl built for polite deceit. "I know why you're here," he said, sitting first. "Let's talk like adults." "No," I said calmly. "Let's talk like people who both have something to lose." He blinked, caught off guard by the tone. He tried to posture. "This isn't the place." I cut him off. "Do you want me to list who was in my house yesterday? Or should I send it in an email to your board instead?" That hit. He sat back, folding his hands. "What do you want?" "I want your resignation," I said. "I want the woman who walked into my house with you gone." And I want Amanda suspended pending an internal investigation, preferably one that leads to termination. He laughed bitterly. You think it's that simple? We're not in a movie. No, I said, standing. We're in real life. Where security cameras exist, where IT logs activity, where people like Corey still owe me favors. I'm giving you an option, not a threat. If you prefer the board and a PR scandal, we can do that too. But the next call I make will not be polite. His silence was long. But then, quietly, he asked, you'll delete the footage? I already have, I lied. 3 days later, he stepped down. Officially for family reasons. The woman, his VP of strategy, also present at Amanda's gathering, followed 2 hours after. Amanda didn't get suspended immediately, but she did come home that night like someone who'd been slapped in a meeting. The tension on her face was wired so tight she couldn't blink properly. You talked to him, she said flatly. I didn't answer. You ruined my job. No, I said, walking past her. You did that when you drugged your husband and hosted an orgy with your boss. I just reported the results. Her face contorted, but no tears came. She wasn't the crying type. She was a blamer. And now she had no one left to blame but herself. But we weren't done. Not yet. Because Amanda, in her arrogance, left something behind in the house, a second phone hidden in a shoebox under the guest bed. And what I found on that phone wasn't just evidence. It was strategy. I don't know what made me check the guest room. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the way Amanda avoided looking in that direction every time she passed by it. Maybe it was just one of those small voices in your gut that speaks and whispers but demands to be heard. The guest room was never locked. We barely used it. But on Friday afternoon, while she was in the shower pretending her career wasn't crumbling, I slipped in and started going through it piece by piece. Nothing obvious at first. Clean sheets. A neatly folded blanket. Empty drawers. But something felt wrong about the closet. There was a box. A plain white shoebox. Size 8, labeled in her handwriting, winter scarves. Inside, not scarves. A burner phone. Cheap. Old. The kind you'd never notice unless you were looking for secrets. I didn't turn it on right away. I just stared at it, holding it in both hands like it might bite. When I powered it up, it didn't ask for a passcode. That's how sure she was I'd never find it. The messages were still there. Not texts, encrypted app chats. One name kept coming up over and over. M. It wasn't the CEO. It wasn't the woman from the party. This was someone else. A handler. A director. Someone Amanda answered to. M. Confirmed date, time. Amanda, Tuesday. He'll be unconscious by 1 p.m. M. Clean up after. Make sure no footage. Amanda, taken care of. No suspicion. He trusts me. M. If this goes wrong, I'm not responsible. Amanda, it won't. He's soft. Soft. That word hit like a brick. I wasn't even a man in her eyes. Just a weakness to be managed. A gullible, boring liability. There were pictures too. Not graphic, but worse in their own way. Amanda on the porch, glass in hand, laughing. Amanda in the mirror with one of the men behind her, clearly taken mid-moment. Amanda holding the burner phone, flipping off the main camera in our hallway. I didn't even know she knew where it was mounted. She didn't just cheat. She documented it. Like it was a project. A mission. And M wasn't some casual fling. M was her coordinator. I downloaded everything. Transferred it to a private drive. Multiple backups. Then I put the phone back in the box, back under the bed, exactly where I found it. If she noticed it was touched, let her wonder. Let her spiral. That night I confronted her again. Not with rage. Not with demands. With silence. That's what unnerved her the most. She came into the kitchen where I was sitting, tossed her keys on the counter like nothing had happened, and opened the fridge. I didn't move. Didn't speak. You're still mad, she said without turning. Still mad? Still? I slid a piece of paper across the table. Printed from the burner's contents. Just one message. Amanda, it won't. He's soft. She froze. What is this? She asked, voice clipped. I think you know. I don't, she said. You're being dramatic again. I don't know what this is. You don't recognize your own words? She stared at the paper like it might rewrite itself. Her jaw worked, clenched and released. You went through my things? You went through my body, I said. You drugged me. You set me up. You laughed about it in texts. You called me soft. Now her voice went up sharp. So what? You are. You never fight back. You just sit there and take it. You wouldn't know what to do with power if I handed it to you on a plate. I stood. You're going to find out exactly what I know how to do, I said. You want revenge now, she snapped. You think this makes you strong? Snooping through my things like a little boy who found his daddy's secrets. No, I said. Revenge is when you hurt someone worse than they hurt you. I'm not going to hurt you. Oh, really? She mocked. No, I repeated, stepping closer. I'm going to let you do it to yourself. I'm going to give you room. Rope. And when you hang yourself with it, I'll be the one recording. She went silent again. That kind of silence people sit in when they're trying to remember where the exits are. She didn't respond. Just walked away. But the next morning, the burner phone was gone. She knew. And now? She was going to start running. Amanda thought she was cleaning up. That much was clear. After the confrontation with the printout, she became strangely agreeable, too agreeable. She started cooking again, asking questions about my day, offering to make it up to me with small, empty gestures. But her eyes weren't focused when she spoke. They were watching me like a guard watches a cell, making sure the prisoner doesn't know how loose the bars really are. The burner phone was gone by the next morning. I didn't panic. I expected it. She would have assumed I only found what I printed. That I hadn't made copies. That I hadn't traced her digital fingerprints while she slept. She'd forgotten what I do for a living, or maybe she never cared. She underestimated me again. She thought she was ahead. So I let her think so. 3 days after the burner disappeared, she left for a client presentation out in the suburbs. She took her usual black tote bag, left in her tailored blazer and heels, and even gave me a light, mechanical kiss on the cheek before walking out the door. But I knew the client she named. I knew the address. I also knew they'd relocated 2 months ago, a detail she clearly forgot. I gave her a 20-minute head start. Then I followed her. She didn't go to the fake address. She didn't even go near a commercial office building. She drove 30 minutes northwest, past the business districts, into a stretch of anonymous side roads lined with auto repair shops and abandoned lots. At 11:37 a.m. she pulled into a gated storage facility. Storage. I waited in my car, parked diagonally behind a delivery van where she couldn't see me. She entered a code at the gate. Not the one we use for our shared unit. This was something else. A different row entirely. Unit 47D. I memorized the number as she disappeared into the maze of identical roll-up doors. She was inside for 17 minutes. No one else came or went. When she emerged, she wasn't carrying anything, but her tote looked heavier. Her posture was tighter. She glanced around, quick and twitchy, before sliding back into her car and driving off. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to. I had what I came for. That night, while she showered, I slipped into her purse. Not to steal. To confirm. The key fob she used at the storage facility was there, black plastic, unmarked, a separate tag from any of the keys we shared. I took a photo, replaced it exactly. The next day, I went back to 47D. The manager at the front desk didn't ask many questions. I had a fake lease agreement printed out. I said I was her brother and she'd forgotten something critical inside, and since the account was paid up for 6 months, they didn't press. They buzzed me through. Inside 47D was not what I expected. There were no boxes. No furniture. Nothing stored. Just a desk. A folding table. A chair. A laptop. A burner printer. And a stack of envelopes bundled with twine. Next to them, a whiteboard on a metal easel covered in timelines and names. My name. The CEO's. The woman from the party. 3 others I didn't recognize. And at the top, in blue marker, operations window Q1/Q2, stage 3, dissolution. Dissolution. There were folders. Printed documents. Legal forms, bank transfers, blank power of attorney drafts. Some were filled out with my name. Some bore forged signatures. She was preparing to erase me. Financially. Legally. I sat down in the chair. The laptop was password protected, but again, Amanda used patterns. She thought like a strategist, not a coder. For tries, and I was in. There were schedules. Messages. Files marked endgame. She'd started planning this over a year ago. And here's the part that chilled me more than any betrayal. She wasn't just cheating. She wasn't just lying. She was building a case, a psychological file, on me. Charting my behaviors. Notes on my sleep patterns, triggers, responses to stress. It was like she'd been studying me the way someone prepares to exploit a witness in a trial. Not because she loved me. Because she needed to destroy me efficiently. But the most shocking thing in that unit wasn't the files or the envelopes or the whiteboard. It was a single sheet of paper pinned to the wall behind the desk. Typed. 1 sentence. He needs to feel like leaving is his idea. Do not push. My hands shook as I took a photo. Amanda had built a trap. A long one. A slow one. And now I was deep inside it, but for the first time I had a map. She didn't know I'd seen the control room. She didn't know I had the names. And she had no idea that I was about to flip the whole board. Amanda was precise, methodical, and cold, but not careful in the way that truly dangerous people are. She thought 3 moves ahead, maybe 4. But she never planned for what happens when the pawn turns around and flips the board in the middle of the game. She also had a blind spot, her past. So I dug into it. I spent 2 days doing nothing but combing through her professional history, old contacts, and background traces. I wasn't looking for dirt. I was looking for cracks, slips, loose ends she forgot to cauterize. And then I found something. Or rather, someone. 5 years ago, Amanda worked on a contract pitch with a boutique consultancy firm that specialized in corporate takeovers. That gig ended fast, too fast. The client pulled out mid-negotiation, citing ethics violations. Amanda had scrubbed all mention of it from her resume, but LinkedIn remembers everything. I called the firm. I asked for a man named Elliot Rhodes. He picked up on the third ring. "Mr. Rhodes," I said. "You don't know me, but I think we've both been played by the same woman." There was a pause. A long one. "You're talking about Amanda, aren't you?" he said. "Yes." He exhaled. I could hear him lean back in his chair. What did she do this time? And just like that, I had an ally. Elliot told me the story in pieces. How Amanda had charmed her way into the inner circle of a financial acquisition project, leaked sensitive data to a rival firm, and then vanished before the fallout. She never got caught, but she got noticed. Elliot couldn't prove it, but he never forgot her. The problem was, no one believed him. She was too polished, too clean, too above suspicion. Until now. I sent him a file, redacted but real, with the storage unit evidence, including her plans for dissolution and the psychological profile she built on me. He called back within the hour. "I have a contact," he said. "A private investigator. Ex-fraud division. If we can tie this together with what she did to you, what she's still doing, we might have something bigger than revenge. We might have exposure." By the next morning, I had a team. The investigator's name was Leon. Quiet, direct, wore thick glasses, and had a face like someone who didn't blink easily. He didn't waste time with sympathy. He laid out a process, traced the finances, freezed the motions, and exposed the narrative before she activated the next phase. I handed over everything. Emails, storage photos, timeline documents, even the printout of He's Soft. Then I made my own move. I hired a lawyer. Not a divorce lawyer, not yet, but someone who specialized in corporate sabotage and asset shielding. We drafted a plan to lock down every account Amanda might try to touch. I shifted savings into a trust under legal protection. I moved key files off our shared cloud. And most importantly, I began drafting my own narrative. Amanda had no idea. She kept up the act. The faux sweetness. The carefully planned meals. She even suggested a weekend getaway to reconnect. I said yes. Smiled. Kissed her on the cheek like she used to do when she was slipping cyanide into my lunch. But I didn't pack for a weekend. I packed for war. 3 nights before the planned getaway, Leon called. "We have something," he said. "A second phone number. Linked to an offshore bank setup. She's been prepping to disappear." My throat went dry. "Disappear where?" "Still digging," he said. "But get this, the name tied to the account isn't hers. It's yours. She's building a case that you embezzled the funds. Fake paper trail. Even some voice samples clipped from your calls." My blood went cold. She wasn't just leaving. She was going to burn the house down and frame me for the fire. "She's accelerating the plan," Leon said. "You need to act before she does." That night, Amanda got a phone call. Unknown number. She stepped into the backyard to take it. She always stepped outside when it was something she didn't want me to hear. She didn't know I was listening from the side window. "I told you, I'm still in control," she hissed into the phone. "He suspects nothing." Pause. "No," I said, "I handled it. There's no trail." Another pause. "What do you mean the files are gone?" She froze. "No. No one else had access. I checked everything." Her voice shook, not with fear. With anger. The kind of anger that only shows up when a predator feels something shift beneath them. She slammed the phone shut and came back inside. Smiling. But her eyes? They were full of fire and fear. And that was when I knew. She was no longer the one hunting. She was cornered. She wanted mountains. I gave her microphones. Amanda booked the weekend getaway herself, a remote cabin 2 hours from the city. She called it a reset, a chance to get out of our heads. Her language had shifted. Less manipulation, more desperation wrapped in poetry. She needed control back. She needed me vulnerable again. So I gave her the perfect illusion, a man still spinning in confusion, still blindly in love, still falling for her version of the story. I packed light. She packed heavy. She always overpacked when she was planning for more than just a trip. The drive was quiet. She filled the silence with stories from work, fake drama she invented to cover her trail. Someone got fired, someone got engaged, someone cried in the elevator. I nodded, pretending to listen. Meanwhile, I checked my watch. Mic 1 in my watch band. Mic 2 sewn into the inside of my backpack. Mic 3 my phone, recording everything and syncing to cloud storage in real time. The cabin was too pretty. Renovated, modern fixtures, wine rack full, view of a frozen lake. Amanda lit a fire immediately, poured us drinks, and acted like nothing had ever happened. I let her. I played the husband she remembered, the one who asked instead of accused, who believed instead of checked, who slept deeply instead of wired a cabin for audio capture. She waited until midnight to try. We were sitting by the fire, a bottle and a half into a wine neither of us liked. She was curled against me, head on my shoulder, but her muscles were tight. Not relaxed. Coiled. Like someone bracing for a recoil. You've been distant, she said softly. I know I haven't been perfect lately, but I want to fix this. Her voice was liquid. Slippery. Measured. You've been tired, she added. Maybe working too much. Pause. Or maybe something's on your mind. I didn't respond. She leaned in, tilted her face toward mine, and smiled like it was the first date all over again. I'm not your enemy, she whispered. I turned to her slowly, looked her in the eyes, and said the line I'd rehearsed a dozen times. Then why does it feel like I'm standing on a trapdoor? That froze her for a half-second. Barely. But I saw it. A flicker of calculation. You're being dramatic, she said quickly, brushing it off. We needed this. To reconnect. Reconnect. I repeated, keeping my voice calm. Before or after I get framed for embezzlement? Her lips twitched. Just once. The kind of twitch that happens when a move misfires in a chess game. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. She stood up. This again? Are we really doing this here? Now? I stood too. Now's the only time that matters, Amanda. Her eyes went cold. I'm trying to save us, she hissed. I'm trying to give you a way out. If you keep pushing, you're going to lose more than just me. There it was. The mask cracking. Finally. Go on, I said, voice flat. Finish the threat. I want to hear it exactly the way you practiced it. She stepped closer, just inches from my face, and spoke through clenched teeth. You're a liability. You're weak. And people like you? They don't survive without someone like me cleaning up their messes. I gave you stability. I gave you a life. And if you think for 1 second you're going to turn this around on me. I took a step back and smiled. That'll do. She blinked. What? That's all I needed. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. A confirmation ping. The data upload was complete. Sent to my lawyer. Sent to Elliot. Sent to Leon. Everything. Captured. Amanda looked at me, and for the first time, the first real time, I saw fear. Not because I was dangerous, but because I had stopped being predictable. What did you do? She whispered. I walked to the fireplace, picked up the wine glass she'd been sipping from, and held it to the light. No sedatives this time, I said. That's new. She didn't speak. Tomorrow, a team's coming to the house. To go through your files. The ones you didn't burn. The fake accounts. The paper trail. They already have the unit on record. Still, she said nothing. I walked past her and opened the door to the night air. This cabin was your stage, I said quietly. Now it's your confession booth. She turned slowly, stiffly. The actress realizing the curtains have been yanked down mid-performance. This isn't over, she whispered. No, I agreed. It's finally beginning. Amanda didn't run. Not immediately. That would have been too obvious, too messy, too beneath the image she had worked so hard to sculpt. She came back from the cabin like a woman returning from a spa retreat, calm, unbothered, focused. She unpacked her bags with the same eerie precision she had used to construct my downfall, humming softly to herself like she still had cards left to play. But the game had already shifted. She just hadn't realized she was no longer at the table. The next 48 hours hit her like a slow-motion collapse, quiet, precise, irreversible. First came the lawyer's letter. A courtesy, really. Official notification that an investigation into fraudulent financial activity tied to her accounts had begun. Sent to her work email and our shared home address. The envelope was thick. She opened it with a kitchen knife and didn't flinch as she read. But I saw the way her throat tightened when she reached the second page. The page that listed the assets she no longer had access to. She walked past me that morning like I was invisible. But she dropped her mug. It shattered across the kitchen floor. She didn't pick it up. That afternoon, she called someone. I don't know who, I couldn't trace it. But it didn't go the way she hoped. I heard her pacing in the hallway, hissing short bursts of frustration into her phone. What do you mean you can't pull out? No, I didn't leak anything. I can handle him. I said I can handle A. The call ended with silence and the sound of her chucking the phone onto the couch. She didn't scream. She just sat there and stared at the wall for 15 minutes like someone waiting for the lights to go out. Then came the resignations. Elliot kept his word. He leaked just enough to the right people. People Amanda had leaned on, borrowed from, manipulated with smiles and fake charm. They dropped her like a virus. Her firm suspended her pending review. Her private consultancy contact cut ties. 2 names from her group chat quietly left the social circles they once shared, and one posted a cryptic Instagram story with a single word. Unfollowed. She started drinking again. quietly at first. A few glasses of wine. Then vodka. She thought I didn't notice. I watched her pour it into iced tea bottles, swirling the liquid like a ritual. By day 4, she was spiraling. She stopped leaving the house. She started watching me, shadowing my movements like I might explode without warning. The woman who had drugged me, lied to me, plotted my erasure, now stood frozen in our kitchen, unable to open her own mail. On day 5, she snapped. "You think you've won?" She spat, blocking the hallway. "You think turning a few people against me makes you some kind of hero?" "No," I said. "Heroes save people. I'm just making sure you don't destroy anyone else." "You always needed me," she snarled. "Without me, you're nothing. You don't even have a spine unless someone pushes you against the wall." "I don't need a spine," I replied. "I have evidence." She laughed. But it was hollow, thin, the laugh of someone who used to be feared and was now afraid of herself. "You think the law is on your side?" she asked. "You think anyone cares what a bitter little husband says?" "I think the law cares about fabricated financial documents. About drugging someone. About a burner phone with offshore accounts linked to stolen IDs." I stepped closer. She didn't move. "I think they care when the woman behind it all starts making calls to cover her tracks and everyone suddenly gets quiet. You don't scare me. I don't need to. The mirror does a better job." Her mouth opened. Closed. She stepped back. Just once. That night she left. No goodbye. No fight. Just the sound of drawers opening and closing softly. The front door creaking at 2:12 a.m. A rideshare idling outside for less than a minute. She was gone. But she didn't run far. She couldn't. Because what she didn't know yet, what she couldn't have predicted, was that Leon had already flagged her passport. And that her new accounts had been frozen before she even packed her bag. Amanda had spent a year laying out a plan to erase me from the picture. But I had learned from her. And now? She was the one disappearing. When Amanda vanished that night, I didn't chase her. I didn't call. I didn't ask where she went. I didn't need to. Everything she'd done until now had been built on the assumption that I would always come looking, that no matter how deep she buried the blade, I'd be the one pulling it out, still trying to fix what she broke. But this wasn't about fixing anything anymore. It was about the final move. I let her stay gone for 5 days. Just long enough for her to feel like she was starting to rebuild whatever version of herself she thought she still had left. Long enough for her to reach out to the only person she thought still had a reason to protect her, her younger sister, Lauren. That's where she miscalculated again. Amanda had always treated Lauren like background noise. The kind of sister you keep at arm's length, make promises to, then quietly erase from your life when they start asking too many questions. Lauren had called me once before, months ago, after Amanda flaked on her birthday dinner and ghosted her for 2 weeks. I remember the call. She was crying. I told her Amanda was just busy, that she'd come around. I was still lying to myself back then. But Lauren hadn't forgotten. And when Amanda showed up at her apartment at 3 a.m. looking rattled, dragging 2 suitcases and asking for a couch to crash on, Lauren didn't call her friends. She called me. She said, "You ruined her," Lauren whispered on the phone. "That you turned people against her. That everything is your fault." I didn't say anything. "She's not okay," Lauren added. "But I don't think she ever was." That's when I told her everything. Not to recruit her. Not to manipulate. Just the truth. I sent her a file with the messages, the timeline, the storage unit photos. I didn't ask her to believe it. I just asked her to see it. She went silent for 5 full minutes. Then she said, "What do you want me to do?" "Nothing," I said. "But if she tries to run again, I need to know." Lauren didn't ask why. 2 nights later, Amanda made her move. She left Lauren's apartment at 4 a.m. and took a rideshare to a business-class hotel near the airport. I had already alerted Leon. He had people watching every booking under aliases linked to Amanda's known behavior. And sure enough, there it was. A reservation under Rachel Moore. Paid in cash. No luggage. Just a handbag and a passport in hand. She thought she was finally slipping away. She didn't know Leon had already called TSA. She didn't know her new passport, the one she had forged under my last name after initiating a fake divorce filing, had been flagged. She didn't know that I was already standing in the lobby. She spotted me the moment the elevator doors opened. For the first time since this started, she didn't look angry. She looked small. Not broken. Just finally caught in the middle of a room she couldn't twist into her own reflection. "You," she said quietly. "Of course." I stepped forward. "Not close. Just enough." "You tried to become me," I said. "You filed fake paperwork. You took my name. You thought if you killed the version of me you invented, you'd be free." Her jaw trembled. Not out of sadness. Out of calculation, the kind that no longer works. "What do you want?" she asked. "To watch me fall apart?" "You already did." She flinched. Like a single phrase could hit harder than everything she'd done. Security stepped in. They didn't need my word anymore. The paperwork was already filed. The warrants for investigation. The official letters. I didn't have to do anything. She turned to walk, stiff, hands clenched. Then she stopped right before the exit and looked over her shoulder. I could have given you everything, she said. You just weren't brave enough to take it. I nodded slowly. You mistook kindness for cowardice. That was your first mistake. And my last, she asked. No, I said. Your last was thinking you were the only one who knew how to play the game. Amanda walked out with 2 officers behind her. No cuffs. Not yet. But she wasn't walking toward freedom. She was walking into the end she designed for someone else. Amanda's exit wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. There were no dramatic arrests, no flashing headlines, no courtroom spectacle. Just paperwork. Testimonies. Digital footprints she couldn't erase fast enough. The kind of quiet accountability that wraps around you like a noose made of your own decisions. She didn't go to jail. Not yet. But she was charged fraud, identity manipulation, illegal surveillance. Her accounts were frozen. The firm she once ruled from the inside issued a press release by the end of the month after a review of recent concerns. Amanda, redacted, is no longer with the company. They scrubbed her from the leadership page like she'd never existed. Her allies vanished. One blocked her publicly. Another turned state's witness to avoid heat. Even the man she called M, the one feeding her pieces of this twisted puzzle, disappeared into a legal smokescreen the moment the investigation widened. She didn't come back home after the hotel. I stayed in the house for a while, not because I couldn't leave, but because I wanted to see what peace looked like without someone plotting my erasure behind every closed door. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was clean, full of room. The walls stopped whispering. I changed the locks, sold the guest bed, gave away the wine rack. Everything she used as scenery for the show was stripped down to the bones. The house looked smaller, but somehow more mine. Then I started building something else. I switched careers. Something quieter, less performative. I took a role with a data privacy firm. The irony still hits me sometimes that everything she used to destroy me is what taught me how to protect others from people like her. I went to therapy, not because I was broken, but because healing without understanding is just suppression dressed as strength. And I wanted more than survival. I wanted clarity. I reconnected with people I hadn't seen in years. Friends she called a waste of time. Family she subtly distanced me from. One by one, I returned to the version of myself she had slowly diluted. Not the man who sat quietly while the ground disappeared beneath him. The man who stood still, waited, and watched the empire she built collapse under its own weight. She reached out once. Through her lawyer. A brief, soulless message disguised as apology. No ownership. No remorse. Just legal phrases and vague regret. I didn't respond. Not to that. Instead, I wrote something else. A journal. A record. Not out of spite, but so I never forget how subtle betrayal can be. How people like Amanda weaponize your loyalty and call it love. How they craft long, slow burns that feel like warmth until you're too numb to notice the fire. And now if you're reading this, maybe you're where I was. Maybe you're in the fog. Maybe someone's smiling while tightening the screws behind your back. Maybe you've convinced yourself this is as good as it gets, that their version of love is just complicated. Here's what I'll say to you. It's not. Real love doesn't sedate you to host secret parties. It doesn't gaslight your instincts or steal your name or bury your trust under layers of manipulation disguised as charm. If you feel crazy, you're probably being made to feel that way. And if they ever say you're too soft, let them. Because steel is forged soft before it hardens. And when it hardens, it doesn't bend back. I didn't win. I didn't need to. I just ended it. And that sometimes is everything.